Welcome to the OIC, otherwise known as the Omnipresent Information Connection podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson.
And I'm the co-host, Noah Hansen. The Omnipresent Information Connection podcast is all about your world and your unique walk on this path called life. We present fascinating, life-changing information from around the world that has been validated. We also authenticate the information by providing you with links to where you can find out more about what we are talking about on our show. This podcast includes historically accurate, genuine facts that have helped shape our daily lives into what they are today. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the OIC podcast in a new way. We are doing a special 4th of July episode, an Independence Day episode for you today, and Kevin is here with a lot of fun facts for you, and I'm here with a little bit of information myself about slavery and the abolishment of slavery. So how do you want to start it off, Kevin?
Well, I'm going to talk about fun facts about the 4th of July / Independence Day, and we're going to be interjecting information given in a new way that most people don't talk about today.
Yeah, so this might not be a podcast that you would expect to be hearing on the 4th of July, but one that definitely is necessary and is full of information that is profound, information that is worldview changing, and information that is important for us to be sharing on the podcast today. So I'm excited about this one. How do you want to start it off?
Well, we thought it would be appropriate to share some fun facts about history in this historic day. We are already familiar with the fireworks, the parades, the barbecues, and festivals like picnics, fairs, concerts, and parties that take place on this day. But there are also some things many people don't know about the 4th of July. So, first one, we're going to go right into it, is that Congress made Independence Day an official unpaid holiday for federal employees in 1870. In 1938, Congress changed Independence Day to be a paid federal holiday. Only John Hancock actually signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. All others signed it much later. The Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 men from 13 colonies. The average age of the signers of the Declaration of Independence was 45. The oldest delegate was Benjamin Franklin, age 70, of Pennsylvania. The lead author of the Declaration was Thomas Jefferson, and he was 33. 33 will come up a lot in future conversations and talks.
Oh, yeah.
One of 8 signers of the Declaration of Independence were educated at Harvard, 7 in total. Little fun fact, the stars on the original American flag were in a circle so that all the colonies would appear equal.
I actually did not know that one. That's really cool.
Now, the second important little secret behind the stars, all circled together, is that if you remember back in Western wagon wheel days, is that we would gather all the wagons in a circle as a form of protection, as a form of unity, to be able to protect our fleet from dangers and harms that came our way. It also created a stronghold as far as a camp.
Yeah, now, and you know, some of those wagon colonies, those wagon communities were more dangerous than the people attacking them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, the first Independence Day celebration took place in Philadelphia on July 8th, 1776. This was also the day that the Declaration of Independence was first read in public, after people were summoned by the ringing of the Liberty Bell. Wow. Now, that Liberty Bell could be able to be heard for miles and miles, and the placement of the Liberty Bell was put up in a special tower for that special day so that it could be rung out through the colonies so that people could be able to hear it for miles and miles. It was the actual first established ringing of freedom that established total peace and prosperity.
Very cool.
So, number 9, the White House held its first 4th of July party in 1801. Now, listeners, why do you think it took so long for the White House to be able to have it established in 1801? The White House held its first 4th of July party. Do you know why? The White House?
No, because it was a whole, what, like 30 years almost.
Correct. From 1776 to 1801.
Right.
The reason why the White House held its first 4th of July party in 1801 is because it took several years to be able to make a decision to be able to finalize where the White House was going to be established in the first place.
That makes sense.
Because, as you know, listeners, that there was a previous White House to where the White House is today. This particular spot was completely created, developed, inspired off of a specific view in mind for the president.
Yep, a lot like the Air Force One now.
Yep.
In modern days.
President John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Monroe all died on the 4th. Adams and Jefferson both signed the Declaration, died on the same day within hours of each other in 1826.
Wow, that's interesting.
In 1776, there were 2.5 million people living in the nation at that time. Today, the population of the USA is in excess of over 316 million people and counting.
Yep.
So, 59 places in the U.S. can contain the word liberty in the name. Pennsylvania, with 11, has more of these places than any other state. Of the 59 places nationwide containing liberty in the name, 4 are counties. Liberty County, Georgia, Liberty County, Florida, Liberty County, Montana, and Liberty County, Texas. The most common patriotic-sounding word used with place name is Union, with 136. Pennsylvania, with 33, has more of these places than any other state. Other words most commonly used in place names are Washington, with 127, Franklin, 118, Jackson, with 96, and Lincoln, with 95. Fireworks are part of the tradition of celebrating this national holiday. The U.S. imported $227.3 million worth of fireworks from China in 2012.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. U.S. exports of fireworks, by comparison, came to just 11.7 million in 2012, with Israel purchasing more than any other country, 2.5 million.
$2.5 million or 2.5 million fireworks?
$2.5 million worth of fireworks.
There you go.
Alrighty then. Number 16. In 2012, vast majority of imported U.S. flags, 3.6 million, were made in China.
$3.6 million or 3.6 million flags?
$3.6 million worth of flags were made in China.
Wow. My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm kind of shaking my head right now.
Well, yeah, because you have to understand is that America and its manufacturing and its production and its facilities are all too expensive. And that we, the prideful people of the United States, wanted to be able to have a third world country to be able to create the flag for us financially so that we didn't have to burden our own people with making it.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because they didn't think that it was very independent to be able to have American workers create their own flag.
Right, and I know under the current office of administration of the United States, we have a lot less of that manufacturing being done overseas, which is, in part a good thing. But we'll see. We'll see where this country goes, man. Looking ahead to.
I'm just glad that we didn't get barbecue from China. The reason why I'm segueing into that is because barbecue is also big on Independence Day. Approximately 150 million hot dogs and 700 million pounds of chicken are consumed on this day.
Wow.
Every 4th of July, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia is tapped, not actually wrong, 13 times in honor of the original 13 colonies.
That's very interesting. I had no idea they did that. Why? What in the world? It's like a traditional ritual. Interesting.
Yes, and in part of that celebration, you have 13 people tapping it just once to be able to honor the original 13 colonies. The number one song that rang throughout all the Americas at that particular time of July 4th was a song called Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle was the highly most played song in all the Americas.
We're not going to play that for you today. Don't worry.
But go ahead, listeners. You can go ahead and sing it in private. Traditions place their origins of Yankee Doodle as a pre-revolutionary war song originally sung by British military officers to mock the devilish, disorganized colonial Yankees with whom they served in the French and Indian War. It was believed that the tune comes from the nursery rhyme Lucy Locket. One version of the Yankee Doodle lyrics is generally attributed to Dr. Richard Shuckburgh, a British Army surgeon. According to one story, Shuckburgh wrote the song after seeing the appearance of colonial troops under Colonel Thomas Fitch the Fifth?
The Fifth, yep.
The son of Connecticut Governor Thomas Fitch. The tune of the national anthem was originally used by the English drinking song called the
Anacreon in Heaven.
Anacreon in Heaven. These words have nothing to do with consumption of alcohol, but the melody that Francis Key had in mind when he wrote those words did originate decades earlier as the melody for a song, Praise of Wine.
So we'll have something in the description box to where you can actually listen to that original tune.
Absolutely. So now getting on to the best part of this whole entire podcast, and it's talking about issues that most people won't. Understand, listeners, is that we value and appreciate and respect all who died so that we could be able to have our own independence.
Of course.
We appreciate and respect all nationalities that allowed this opportunity to take place. Now let me segue into this. Listeners, as you know, in 1776, people were still not free. Noah will go into this in a moment, and he will explain what I'm talking about. Noah?
Well, slavery was not actually abolished, as most of you listeners probably already know. It was abolished in 1862, when Congress annulled the fugitive slave laws and prohibited slavery in the U.S. territories. They also authorized Lincoln to employ free slaves in the Army. Now, from what I've heard, Lincoln was very pro anti-slavery, right? He was genuine in his placement on his in his heart on this matter.
And why?
I'm sure it had to do with growing up, seeing the slaves, working, and feeling in his heart that it was just generally wrong. It came from a moral place of decency that many people just did not have towards the slave trade at the time.
What nationality was Abraham Lincoln?
Well, he was American. He was a generational American at the time, wasn't he?
What authentic race was Abraham Lincoln?
Let me see.
Listeners, now this gets interesting.
Oh, this is kind of saucy. All right, let me read what I've found just off my phone here. Lincoln came from slavery areas of the South and married into a major slave-owning family. That means maybe, just maybe, his mother had sex with someone other than her husband, such as one of the family's male slaves, making Abraham half black.
Correct.
Wow. My goodness, that has some sauce to it.
Absolutely. And when you take a deeper dive into history, you will find other presidents of the United States having mixed blood within their lineage and their heritage. And why?
Well, I mean, many people, if they were having intercourse with someone of another race or nationality, could not be open to the public at the time about this happening. They couldn't just like allow this to happen for fear of facing public, embarrassment all the way up to public execution. So, a lot of secrets were probably withheld from the general public about nationalities and relationships and stuff like that.
What happened to the children?
Oh, yeah, that too. Yep, the kids would just be taken.
And where would they be taken to?
Well, I mean, I would like to take a guess at that. They'd probably be taken to just a slave trader or, a trafficker of some sort.
Let's bring this back home. Is that, would a president allow any of his children to be put into the slave trade?
That'd be a no.
Okay. Would you, Noah, if you had children, freely and willfully put them into the slave trade today?
I would die trying to stop that from happening.
Correct. So what has ended up happening in a deeper dive in our American presidents, and you can be able to look and experience for yourself in history that the presidents that have ended up having children ended up having very powerful leaders as far as children in their communities after the president was no longer president.
Sure.
And even to the point to where these people had such great intelligence and great knowledge because they grew up in that environment that they automatically had a better resonating value of freedom. And because of that, many of these children went on to be able to have very successful lives. But understand, listeners, is that a lot of them couldn't be brought into the spotlight because it was frowned upon for these children to have had the great of lives as they have. But if you take a deep dive into history, you'll be able to find that out and to be able to find who they were and why they made such an impact in the world. Not a single president's child, not a single one of them just decided to be average or ordinary. But they had to be able to rise above their circumstances and situations to be able to lead extraordinary lives, but in the shadows. And they became intelligence informants. They became very, very productive behind the scenes.
That makes sense.
And because of that, that's how you get the actual established butler system.
Sure.
And becoming a butler and other such names like a butler, right?
Right. People working for powerful people.
So it's all in the service industry, right?
Yep.
Do you know who Mr. KFC officially was? The guy that created KFC?
You mean You mean Colonel Sanders?
Colonel Sanders, yep.
He had a rock bottom experience, didn't he?
Yes, he did. But again, if you take a deep dive into looking at Colonel Sanders and who his original parents were, you would then understand why he became as successful as he did.
Yeah, when failure is no longer an option, when you have a mission that you are passionate about, you can get anything done.
Right.
It's a common phrase here in America. If you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Absolutely. So listeners, what I'm trying to be able to get across is that it's not just good enough to be able to kind of know very powerful mixed race men and women on the planet. It's important to be able to understand is that while we, people of what I call non-existent color, white people, were able to have this thing called an Independence Day, to be able to have a freedom, to be able to have a privilege and a right, while other nationalities of people, including Native American Indians, African Americans, and Chinese, were still heavily enslaved throughout the nations and the colonies. I don't value Independence Day like a normal person.
That's right. I would agree with you, because it is just a holiday. Why do we need to celebrate our independence that wasn't even independence for everyone? Why does everyone in this country need to celebrate Independence Day? And I'm not saying that you are wrong for celebrating. I'm just asking, a rhetorical type of question. Why do we need to celebrate this when, in fact, it wasn't a absolute Independence Day? It wasn't independence for everybody. It wasn't independence for, people of dark skin color, for Native Americans, for people of any sort of, even women at the time did not have full independence, right?
Absolutely.
So, and that didn't come until the 1900s, which is just crazy. That whole century, over a whole century and a half after that. So it's it poses the question, why do we celebrate this day? Maybe it's just tradition. Maybe it's time to get together for family. And maybe that's all it should be.
But understand this, listeners, is that the reason why we celebrate Independence Day is because we fought against the British and we won.
Right.
But more importantly, we, the white man, understood with such great intimacy what slavery was, what rulership was, what dictatorship was, that we had no problem doing it to anyone else that wasn't white. But as soon as it happened to us being white, it no longer became right. And I will be the first to say that I find that disgusting. Because true independence is freeing everyone of every nation under God. Every color, every race, every person on the planet, no matter who you are. So for those of you who are listening to this podcast, non-white, I value you. In fact, I respect you. Understand is that I don't take my liberties for granted. I understand that there are many men and women that have died in the backgrounds of our history that nobody talks about, so that these powerful men that do not need to be in power could be able to have a celebration or a festival. Understand, I appreciate being free. But being truly free is to be able to not have taxation without representation. To be able to be told what to do. But understand, the reason why things are happening the way that they're happening is because we have laid down our liberties and our rights. Because we have to have a just over broke opportunity called the job to be able to sustain our families. And because of that, there are outside forces and powers that be that cripple us emotionally, physically, and spiritually on a daily basis to bring us back to the slaves that they want us to be.
Yeah, so I'm glad you jumped forward into modern times, because let's just address a few of the things going on nowadays. We've got, at our border, at our Mexican-U.S. border, we've got children being taken from their parents, and we've got, people who are because of their already oppressed lives, they are searching for freedom here in America, but now are having even more of their rights being oppressed, of their freedom being taken, and there's some pretty terrible things going on in that area. If these people were being justly dealt with, then we wouldn't have children ending up going missing in these supposedly closed off and protected concentration camps. And there's no other word to say it. It's a concentration camp. And we're not even going to address the one that's all over the news right now, because it's all over the news. We are not the news. We are a trusted source of information.
But understand, listeners, is that when's the last time that you saw a Native American Indian in true authentic celebration?
Yep.
Oh, excuse me, listeners. You'd have to be able to literally go to a reservation, better known as a concentration camp, to be able to see them do that.
Right, the land that they didn't even choose for themselves.
But we're forced to be able to have to go and live on. Understand, listeners, that this is a deeper dive into a deeper subject altogether. But understand is that if we continue as Americans to be able to ignore, to not get educated, enlightened, and informed about authenticated information, then we will be the mindless puppets. We will be the authenticated slave, purified to the T, for everyone in their family. While those people that are not appointed by me or by you, that are in power, that can be able to dictate and rule over us, because we have laid down our arms. We've laid down our intelligence, and we've laid down the opportunity to be able to be free once again.
Yes, because, when we talk about in power, a lot of people are still in the mindset that the only people in power are the people that we see on the TV. The people who we are voting for every 4 years. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that there are so many people that we don't even know about who are calling the shots behind the scenes. And it's all about the money. It's all about following the money.
It's all about power.
It's all about, these very, very rich people who don't want to be in the forefront, but they assign and they pick people to be at the forefront to be able to distract us from the real root.
And understand, listeners, is that the reason why I'm saying this is to make you uncomfortable. I will not apologize. I've spent 33 years of my life teaching, training, motivating, directing, and guiding people to the truth. The very greatest gift that I could be able to give you is authenticated information, given to you in a new way today, to be able to not only educate you, to be able to enlighten you, but to be able to say things that most people wouldn't say, to be able to get a result most people wouldn't get, right?
Right. We don't need to tell you all the lies that we've been told. We can mention a few of them, but our main focus is to bring real authenticated truth to you that's going to allow you to, go on a journey of your own further research and discovery to make a difference in your life. An information journey that is right for you to go on, and not just, some conspiracy theory or whatever you want to call it.
Correct. So this 4th of July, ladies and gentlemen, make a decision, make a choice, because this has no political agenda behind it.
Yes, I was going to mention that earlier. Though it may sound political at times, we need to not jump to conclusions and assumptions, because there are so many people nowadays that are unwilling to even hear someone talk about 1, religion, 2, politics, and 3, real truth that may seem like one of those other 2 subjects, but that they want to jump to thinking and assuming that it's one of those 2 subjects before they even hear these people out and have a real conversation.
But understand, listeners, that we understand that it's a protective built-in mechanism because of the lack of control, authentic control, that you have in your life today.
Right. But another thing is, there's a lot of narrative these days that tells us, don't talk about politics at the dinner table. Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. You need to avoid these subjects. Why do you think that is? It's not because these subjects are the cause of, terrible things happening. It's actually the cause of a lot of really good conversations and a lot of really good realizations being made. And that's why we are very blessed to be bringing you this podcast, because we can have a voice, and you can have a voice on our website, inanewway.com. That's why we have the forums. That's why we have areas of open discussion on those platforms.
Mm-hmm. So let's clear the air. Is that I'm happy to be an American. I'm happy that people have died so that I could be able to have freedom. Understand that I'm also a prior military member myself that has fought and be able to won against the enemy so that we can be able to have these ongoing continued freedoms. Understand is that I want nothing but the most positive, most radiating love, manifested love and care for you possible. I want you to be able to be inspired. I want you to be well informed. I want you to be able to be uplifted. I want you to be able to know with unquestionable certainty that you are valued, that you are respected, that you are entrusted, and that I believe in you. Most important, bottom line, is that you personally can make not only Independence Day, but every day that you are alive great again.
Thank you for that. Wonderful. Powerful words, Kevin. I'm going to let it end at that, and we will see you on the next podcast, episode 29 of the OIC podcast. Thank you for listening.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.